He's not on, but I'll keep looking for him.
Regular board meeting script, what we're gonna go with?
Special.
Raspberries out.
That's why Jeff's.
Hang on, let me get this started here. Of course it is.
You have to announce it so everyone
Yeah, I know.
knows. Legal ramifications.
All right, ready?
We gonna call it 6:06.
Yes, sir.
That looks ready. I now call to order this special meeting of the Rotary Consolidated Independent School District with the Board of Trustees. Today is August the 9th, 21, time is 6:06. I have in person myself, Danny Carrion, Carter Evanson, Mark Harris. And I do not have anybody else online. So I verify that we have a quorum of board members present per provision of the Texas Open Meetings Act, either in person or through video conference software. Mr. Carter, will you verify that we comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act provision concerning the notice for this meeting?
We do.
Mr. Edmondson, would you lead us in a word of prayer, please, sir?
Absolutely. Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this community, serve this school. Thank you for those that are administration and those that are part of the school district, Lord, that you would just guide them, that you would give us all direction and discernment in the way we should go. Father, that we be a blessing and give this next generation great opportunities to prepare for life and excel. So, Lord, just be with us tonight. Guide us in all that we do. We're excited about the future, potential, new things that are coming. We just ask for your help in Jesus' name.
Amen. Do you have anything on public comment?
We do.
No in person, no email. So I guess you want to move into Gallagher first.
You can go and do the previous board agendas. I mean, unless there's anything that needs to be done, I recommend you approve it.
We'll all get the previous board minutes.
Yes.
That's the only thing we have on the consent agenda.
Yeah, there is no, it's not a consent agenda, it's just a regular item.
Everybody read over the previous board minutes. Any corrections? Go ahead and approve those.
Yes.
I move to approve the previous board minutes.
I second.
Have a motion second on the previous board minutes. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Now we'll move into Gallagher.
Trustees, we have Gallagher Constructions here to talk to us about the total sheet and prime contractor for the pre-engineered metal buildings, and we will hand it over.
So what you have before you, we talked about this several months ago, was when the documents got so wide, some completeness where it could just be 3 pages there. I don't have a whole lot of information to cover, but just I'll point it out. Our good news was to get this portion of the work bid from a cost perspective with what the market's doing. As we continue to see those numbers rise, was to hopefully get these guys signed up. And then from a delivery standpoint, which we're still seeing long lead items for structural steel, metal buildings, et cetera, along with others, but these two being the key. So we got the documents here several weeks ago, put it out to bid, bid on July 27th. The second page over was the response we got from structural steel bidders and metal building bidders. We only ended up with one structural steel guy, Metroplex Fabrication. Not for the effort, but James tried. This guy we're familiar with, but we had a lot of local fabricators around here, but for whatever reason, I was telling Mr. Carter earlier, we couldn't get the interest from them. And I don't know if right now it's just a weird market with allotments and stuff that these guys are being given. And maybe the smaller jobs right now aren't as, they're just not looking for those because they're putting their efforts elsewhere. So I don't have the answer. That's just my speculation. But we're comfortable with the guy that did bid it. The one bid we did get, Metroplex, they're out of the Dallas area. They're doing the job for us in Crockett County, Ozona, south of San Angelo. They've done quite a few projects for us in the Metroplex. They're also going to be doing your neighbors north of you here. So I don't have a problem with them as far as that goes. We just always like to have typically 2 or 3 bidders. In this case, we just didn't get it. The metal building numbers 3, I was pleased with those 3. 2 of them I wasn't familiar with. One, we were Red Dot Buildings. Come to find out, the HS Outdoorsman is a resident or used to live here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Ethan.
I can't remember.
There you go. Yeah. We didn't know that till just the end of last week. He bid it. He didn't tell us, which is fine. But he did. Last time James talked to him, he brought us up to date and said that he grew up here or whatever, knew several. So we were pleased to find that out because we didn't know it. So, and I think it's going to work out great. So, and then 3D Building Systems, that's someone out of the Metroplex that has been business here recently, but I haven't done any work with them. So those were the bids we ended up with. And then on the next page over, I just put it in a total sheet as far as how those numbers total together. May not necessarily mean a whole lot because this will all go back to when we bid the rest of the project. It'll go back to our main master total sheet. But right now we put as a recommendation, obviously Metroplex in there to sign up on the structural steel. And then on the pre-engineered metal building, we are recommending Ethan and his firm, HS Outdoorsman. There's a line item just below that. His base bid was the $298. In the specs, it was a little confusing about whether some areas they call for a 3-coat system versus a 2-coat on the Kynar paint. In talking to not only him, but several of the other metal building guys, it didn't make sense. The 3-coat, not only does it extend the time in getting that material, but it's more kind of a custom application. Costs more, obviously. Your warranty doesn't change. You don't get more of a warranty on it. So we elected to put it in here and take the credit to go to the 2-coat, which is what we typically see. I don't know that I've ever done a 3-coat. And then I've had the line item. This is just a budget. I just wanted to carry something forward. But in this last set of documents, they added a canopy, and I can't remember what side of the building, east or west, that's on, but they added some canopies along one of the overhead doors and then 2 outside man doors out of the building. They didn't initially have it on there, but they did add it. We weren't carrying it initially. Neither did these guys pick it up in their bids. So right now, I put a budget after talking to each of the metal building guys, what they thought would be a good placeholder for it. We came up with $30,000, and I think it'll be probably less than that, maybe half, because I'm not sure it's necessary to run it. They've got it running the entire length of the building. There's 2 doors over there that are probably 30 feet apart. You really just need it at each door location and then the overhead door. So we talked to the architect, James did. We spent some time with them, and they agreed. They'll modify that when we get the rest of the documents, which we do have now, the 100%, but they'll probably correct that in an addendum, and then we'll get a firm number from Ethan and his firm once that gets revised. So, but I did want to put a placeholder there just so you see we at least identify it. So, but the total there, so what we're really wanting to approve is just basically the total sheet and those 2 contracts for now. And then what we'll do is get those guys released, get them locked in on their pricing, get submittals and shop drawings going, because once again, the lead time is our issue, and pricing, but both really. But we're seeing 20 weeks on stuff that used to take 12 to 14, and we're even seeing 25 weeks depending on who you talk to. So we need to get them started, and hopefully, that'll help us on the back end of this deal.
So what is the price? I mean, you spoke of, which we've been, I think, a little bit nervous about since we began this.
Yeah, the overall budget.
The process of prices elevating and supply and demand, all the stuff that goes into that. But so I know this is just part of it. We're just starting, but where's this line with what was projected?
What we see right now is that we're still a little bit under budget with where we were the last time we gave you an update. When we gave the update before, following that meeting, WRA went back and made some changes that we all anticipated them doing. James updated that. The steel numbers obviously went up, those individual line items, but there's line items of things that were modified came down. And so we're sitting still, I don't know, I think the last update we did was about 100,000 roughly under budget for the base bid. Now we do have the alternate, if you recall, to do the renovation at the gymnasium, which was always out of budget and still will be. But as far as the base budget goes, base building budget, we feel like we're still in line.
Well, I just figured y'all had a ballpark estimate on this particular one.
Yes, we did, and these individual two line items did go up, which those were from several months ago, and I anticipated that just because the market had changed. Those things continue to move up as we go. Drywall's one too, but with some of the revisions we made and taking out some scope, right now we're still showing that to be at budget. So, I mean, obviously we're not going to really know until we bid it, and we're fixing to start that as we speak.
Yeah, there were some areas in WRA's design where they backed off on some things to try to help that out in anticipating this. I saw that they actually deleted quite a bit that could be done that way, where they had CMU walls in the addition for the alternate or something like that. They would take them off where it wasn't needed or something like that. So, and that did help. So yeah, until we have it out to bid, there's really no way to.
And where we are with that, just real quickly before I get it, so we've got the documents, 100%. I don't know if you've gotten a copy of those.
Those are them right there.
So we've gotten 100% from WRA. We've got our bid packages written. We're advertising in the paper, I think, the end of this week. And then those will start hitting the street next week. We'll do a pre-bid September 1. Let the guys that want to, they'll come out, take a look, since we got renovation work, and then we'll bid it on September the 14th. Typically, following that bid day, week or week and a half, then we'll bring everything back in here just as we did tonight. But when we bring it in the next time, it's going to be the entire budget. It'll be every trade, including these. We'll put these in there so you'll see exactly where we are and how we compared.
Once you make the bids, they make the bids, you get them locked in. Are they locked in regardless of the fluctuation of
Man, I've never
materials?
seen anything like this. I'll be honest with you, Bobby, you chime in too. We were talking about it before the meeting. Essentially, yes, but we've had some projects back in the Metroplex where we've got vendors that aren't honoring their numbers to the subcontractors, whether it be roofing material or metal studs. We haven't had a whole lot of that, but we've had some situations where we've had to deal with that, and we've had to actually pay them for those escalated numbers. It's essentially
never before seen.
Essentially we're locking them in, but
Because the governor says, and I talked to some engineers myself that do that for a living.
Yes, sir.
They were saying that the government says knock down the price, but a lot of the corporations are not.
They're not doing it.
They're not still trying to.
I'd say it's not been as bad as I thought it would be on our jobs that we currently have going, knock on wood, but we have had 3 or 4 instances where we've had, and it's been roofing material for insulation. It's been metal studs on one job, and then we've had a couple of metal building jobs that were earlier in the year, probably in January or February, and the one being in Crockett County down the road from you guys down south, where they came back on us. Now, percentage-wise, that's a very small percentage of what we've got going on that we've had issues. So I would say it's not been a problem, but
Can't guarantee.
You can't.
You got to deal with it.
You can't.
Does that break over into your performance bonds, payment bonds, stuff like that, or?
Sorry.
Does that invoke your performance bond and payment bond? Stuff like
Well,
that?
you know, I think we could. The problem we get into that is the timing to do all that. And that's, we had a fairly sizable project where it was a drywall metal stud situation. It was about $1 million. We actually ended up rescinding the guy's contract and going to the second guy. The questions were thrown about whether we should go after the bond. The problem was we didn't have the time because typically that'll end up dragging out 2 or 3 months. 2 or 3 months wasted on that. We weren't going to open school here a year from now, which was going to be more of a bigger problem. So we elected just to move on to the next guy, and the school was okay with that. But I could see a situation where that we could go that direction. It's just going to be situational, I think, is whether or not we've got the time to do that. I hope to not. I mean, I don't know,
Sure.
but I feel good about it if we get these guys signed up like these two are here. Metroplex has been real good about it. I know Ethan, we've talked to extensively about it. It's just to get them locked in and get things started now and hopefully not have that issue.
Sure. Well, we'll just.
So what you're saying is we hit this at the right time. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right on.
Just right on time. I mean, you could not have asked for anything better. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. 6 months later, it might be worse. I hope to see it turning around, but we've not seen it yet. Hopefully, I keep saying a year from now, maybe we'll start seeing these material lead times and, escalation, maybe hope to back off, but I don't know.
Well, on this bid we're talking about, that's just the shell, nothing interior plumbing.
Yeah, that, all this is just the structural steel frame for the classroom addition and then the metal building for the shop.
Both of which have some long lead as far as detailing the drawings, getting those
Yeah.
out for submittals.
Yeah, they gave us about 6 weeks to get shop drawings done. So say tomorrow we go back, assuming you guys approve, tomorrow we'll go back to the office. We'll send them both an email. We'll start working their contracts and putting those together, which we'll send for you to sign, and then we'll forward to them. But we'll kind of give them a notice to proceed to get going, but that'll release them to get their shop drawings started. That process will take about 6 weeks, depending on who you talk to. Some will tell you 7, some will tell you 6, some will tell you 8. But so that'll take 6 to 7 weeks. And then once we get those submitted, they get them submitted to us, we'll get them approved. It'll take a week or 2. And then once it's approved, then they'll start fabrication. And that's going to take another, 10 to 12, 13 weeks. So, now, on y'all's particular project with the structural, that's the metal building, structural steel will kind of mirror that as well, timeframes. We did on this particular project, we did this intentionally to hopefully help that lead time. Was all this was designed with beams instead of joist and deck. I mean, there'll be beams and deck, but the joist is where we've had a lot of the lead time issue. The beams those are fabricated by the steel fabricators, and they do that in-house. And so the lead times are still extended because they got to get the material, but it's far better than the joist time frame. So, which also adds a little bit to the cost because the tonnage is more. But we think we're doing ourselves better by saving the time frame on the back end.
Anybody think of anything else? So we need to approve this bid or?
What is the language? What is the language that you?
Yeah, just approving the total sheet and prime contracts for the structural steel and metal buildings.
As presented in that will work for what you're, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I recommend that we approve the total sheet and prime contractor for the pre-engineered metal building and structural steel and the new addition and renovations project.
Anybody like to make a motion stating that?
Move to approve what Mr. Carter just said.
That's real.
As read. A second? You seconded it? Yes. I have a motion and second to approve the bid as read by Mr. Carter. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
And then if you could stick around, if you could just explain the next item, which is the third, the review plan instruction.
Oh, yeah.
If you could just, yes, if
Yeah.
you could just kind of go over that, just like what we talked about.
Sure.
And so why that's needed.
Yeah, so, Safe Build, they do across the state where we run into small communities where the resources by the municipalities can't be provided to do all the plan review and inspections on site. So they come in as a third party. WRA's documents are sent to them and they'll review those for all code compliance, ADA, all those things that can get you in trouble if you don't have somebody looking at it. And so they'll do that review. And then on top of that, if the city isn't able to do the inspections, when we call in, when we're out here building it, we're calling in for a framing inspection or electrical inspection, in wall, above ceilings. These guys will come out and do that inspection and give us green tags, just assuring that the stuff is being put in per code and per compliance. You don't have to do it, but I highly, highly recommend it. Just making sure that this stuff is going in the way it should be. 5 years down the road, we don't want to see a problem where somebody cut a corner and it wasn't caught by our team or whatever. These guys are third party independent of everybody. And so it's dollars well spent.
Your word's not good enough? Your word's not good enough?
Well, yes, always is.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm here. I'm the phone guy.
We don't need this, right? We don't need this.
Well, now, just so we're all on the same page, he also is the one that tried to get away with a couple of Zooms with Amanda on the Zoom. So just so you know, he didn't even come up as his own name. He was Amanda. So
Exactly.
let's just make that real clear that,
No judgment.
But that's for all the different jobs that y'all don't actually perform, but these different subcontractors perform. And that's making sure that it's all done correctly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we oversee all that as far as being on site and we're coordinating all those trades and all that going in. And then, like I said, typically the city making sure that you're building per their local ordinances and codes. They usually would have somebody come out and do those inspections. And so when they don't have that resource to do it, I recommend that you have that somebody independent of us, somebody independent of the architect, that will be on the best interest of all of us to make sure that.
just really holding everybody else accountable.
It is.
That's kind of what it is, more or less the accountability.
Does that turn around, put the liability on them if something does go wrong?
Well, I mean, I don't know how that plays out if there is an issue. I mean, I guess you could go back to them, but ultimately it's going to come back probably us as
Yeah,
someone that's going to carry your
that's me.
warranty and making sure things are done. I mean,
Amanda.
we're not going. We're not going anywhere, I promise. So if there's a problem, we're going to be there to address it, I promise you.
But more or less, it's just a protection and the safety and covering everybody,
Yeah.
as well as protection for
Yes.
the public if something does happen and they
Absolutely.
say, well, this was all
The longevity of
done.
your building and it's typically a requirement from the city to do that, right? Just like you pay them for a building permit and
That's usually where those fees are accounted for, is in a building permit.
that's correct. That's correct.
So y'all already had those fees built in?
Yes, we carried a line item for it. I think I had, I don't remember. I went back and looked after I saw, I think his total came out to like 28 or 29.
29,
And I think I had 30 or 33 in there that we were just assuming, just plugging a number back when we did your budget. So it's there, it's covered.
So it's not an additional.
Oh, no, it's not
already
additional
built
cost.
into
No.
the budget.
Yeah.
That's where I was going, so we didn't have to approve anything.
Oh, absolutely. It's there. And you'll see that when we come with all the bids and everything at that, after the job bids out, we bring it back in here, you're gonna see all those line items.
Take a class to be one of these? Can I take a class to be one of them guys?
Yeah, I'm sure they're hired.
Right and left.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
There's a lot of the third parties that do this. Even some of the bigger districts that we work for back in the Metroplex, the municipalities don't, they hire it out to a third party for whatever reason. Bureau Veritas is one that does a lot of that.
I think the city
So-
has to do that. They're not,
Yeah.
because
Now you know what, tell Laura you're outdone instead of.
she'll still find me. Oh, yes. Actually, I think the city does somebody like that when they have big projects.
Yeah.
I recommend that we approve that. That's,
It's already in there, do we have to approve?
well, I mean,
Just something we need to approve?
I think I would, just because you're gonna
yeah,
sign
sign
off
it, yes.
his proposal, and I would.
I move to accept the proposed safe-built inspection process as
As stated in here.
presented.
Second. That.
I have a motion and a second on the floor for safe built. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
All right. Thanks,
Good.
guys. We very much do appreciate it. No, thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Absolutely.
Just trouble.
Uh-huh.
Amanda, take care of yourself, all right? I'll see you, okay?
You're right. Yes, you're right. Thank
I
you.
love it.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you. It was funny because the first time we were waiting on Amanda, and all of a sudden this man's voice comes on. We're like, well, in today's age, that, I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Go with the flow.
That's exactly right. I was just,
Mind your business and go.
exactly.
More I said to say yes. Don't say nothing else. I'm gonna be mad. Yes, sir. Yes,
Brian
ma'am.
Loomis on the hot spot.
Without me.
It's Brian Loomis' turn.
You gotta get up there in the front seat. You're asking for a lot of money.
Boy, you are hard. Yeah, you come off a bad, yeah, you see all that? And you sure asking a lot for, just cut down half of that.
Next we'll move on to, we have 2 bids for student Chromebooks. First one being from CDWG, and the second one being from Dell Technologies.
And also remember, this is not out of general funds. This is out of ESSER 3. So this is a federal fund. We're just, because the price is above the 50,000, you have to approve it. And so that's where we are. So that's why these are brought to you. Okay, so that's just, can you go over, Mr. Lewis, can you start with the Dell Technology one and then go to the CDWG next?
Beginning with Dell Technologies, we had Dell Chromebooks. Price came in at $399.21 for 275 Chromebooks. Also Google licensing fee of $32.78 for each Chromebook. One thing Dell left off that CDW had on theirs was would be their white glove services, and I'm not sure what those would come in at. But for what Dell sent to us, a total bid came at $118,797.25.
Oh, it's added. There was another page that.
Yes, it would be a total.
So it's 109,782.75 plus 9,014.50. That's a switch over. Add those together. That's what he's getting to the second page. I guess that was not, that was cut off. Yes. Yeah. And just trustees, just so you know, the white glove is not a butler service. They're not going to bring it out on a platter or anything else for that. What that does is that is automatically they are customized on site. And when they ship to us, they literally go into the classroom. Otherwise, we have to take all 275 and sit down, download, move to the next one, download, move to the next one. And so we have to do that 275 times. Whereas they can do it one time and customize it exactly what we want. And when we get all 275, they are automatically look the same, and we literally can shove them straight into the classroom. And so otherwise, we would get them on site, and it would take us, we did what? Did we do 70? We did 70 that one time, and it ended up taking me 2 weeks to get done with doing that. And then of course we had some errors. And if there's errors, you have to call them and do that. So by having them do that at their place and ship them to us, we know that they're done exactly as they're supposed to be. So that's what the white glove service is.
But only one of these does that?
Correct.
Or
Dell
only
does
one
not.
of them charges?
Both companies charge it.
Both.
It's
Yes.
Dell did not put it in theirs, so that would be an additional on top of what you're seeing here. So at the 118.7, it would be added additional on top. They didn't even include it in there. And so for the CDWG, it is included in their prices.
So if so what CDW had, the 1650, and so you ballpark that with Dell, you'd be looking at adding another $1,650 onto what Dell has already. So
Really, is it not Bluetooth? Is it not like, you can't do that? Just have one and then just open up? You can't, it just has to be, they do that shit.
Okay, say that again.
Like, I'll connect that one.
He said that you could just program them all at one time, like through Bluetooth or something.
No,
Just send it up.
It's because each one has its own program operating system. And so you have to go in and when you go in, you have to put in the Wi-Fi password, everything else. Whereas on their side, they're able to do it as they go through. They can put them all in at one time, whereas we don't have that capability on site. Yes, exactly, yes. But that's what they essentially do at their place. We just don't have the capability or the software to say all of these are going to have the password of our Wi-Fi. So as soon as they open them up, they're already connected to our Wi-Fi. Otherwise, we're having to put in every single password to every single one and then make sure that everything connects correctly.
that way we're up and running with these in a day or two versus several months out, surely to the students. The CDWG quote, the Lenovo Chromebooks came in at $346 a piece for 275. Then you have the licensing for Google came in at $31 for them, and then of course the white glove service we just talked about for $6 per machine. That total bid was $105,325.
And that is with the white glove already everything.
Correct.
Yes, sir, that is everything.
And the other quote that you guys have in there that was the first one, that has 272. And the other one has 275, and 275 is the number that we needed. We had had two quotes, and so that was what the difference was. And now with all this being said, again, we're going with the assumption of what we think our enrollment's going to be. In the event that we are over where we are thinking we possibly could be, then we may have to add a couple additional ones, but not a large purchase. So in other words, this is going to be the bulk of what we need in our classrooms, but there is a potential that we may need several more. We're talking maybe 20, and that's about it. So we're not talking hundreds.
To get into that, do those come out of ESSER 3?
That's it. Yes, all of these come out of ESSER. Every bit of this is coming out of ESSER. So none of this is coming out of general funds or fund balance. This is all federal funds. So, and we have ESSER 1, 2, and 3 that we can not play with, but we have money for. And so we will definitely make sure that we have all that taken care of.
And you can't put it in your pocket.
No, I guess I could, but I go to jail and I'm not doing that.
Okay.
So is that money that's available? But, you don't have to use it, or, I'm just asking.
We have to use it by 2024.
Oh, okay.
And 20% of ESSER 3 has to be used for learning loss, but the other 80% of that can be used for anything else that is, that can help with, tutorials, remediation, those types of things. And one of the things that we've identified is we do not have the capacity of having technology devices that are touch capable. All of ours are the old timey mouse ones. And our young kids, I mean, even me trying to do this, I don't do very well. You should see me play Minecraft. It's not very much fun. And so, but that's why we want touch capable, is because now starting next year, STAR test is online. It is state law. It is going online. And so with the new online, the highlighting, those types of things are not going to be conducive with the roller pad. It is going to be the touch capable. And that's why we're trying to get ahead of it so that our kids get used to it, so that we can start teaching that capability as well. And so a lot of our programs that we have that are coming in this year with our ESSER 3 funds is touch capable. Therefore, we're kind of putting it all together at one time to make sure that we're hitting the ground running, as opposed to playing catch up down the line. So that's kind of
trouble at home with that.
What's that?
Touch thing. Just saying.
No, what did I do?
What is maybe you already said it, but what is the 4785 for 165? What is,
Which one do you include?
I don't know, page
Second one.
one.
Down.
The higher ground capsule plus notebook sleeve.
Okay, for grades 6 through 12, that would be
Okay.
just a bag that they could take that from the
Oh, okay.
classroom that would protect the device.
So what is I guess, I mean, we're all kind of scratching our heads a little, but what is your recommendation? Which one do you like? Which one do you prefer? Which one's a better piece of equipment?
I would recommend the CDWG quotes. I've worked with them several years, always had good luck with them, good service with them. I've worked with the Lenovo Chromebooks. They've been good machines for us. And with the touch capability, I believe that they'd be a quality machine for the students. So I would recommend the CDW quote, both financially and for the academic purposes would be useful for.
And so you're recommending the CDWG quote for the Chromebooks and then also the notebook sleeves. Is that correct?
We got a total amount on that.
That is going to be, trustees, I recommend to you, based upon the recommendation of Mr. Loomis, to go with the CDWG quote for Chromebooks in the amount of $105,325, and the quote for the higher ground capsule plus notebook sleeve in the amount of $4,785.
Those are pretty easy to update also.
Yes.
They're updatable.
Yes, most catalogs auto
They are now.
updates.
Okay, some of these cards are, well, I don't think go out of date real fast.
Then we'll just see how we can update the STAR, this year. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, you can't get any better with this. Is 110, 110.
Nice.
$110,000, $110. You can't get much better than that right there. So that is my recommendation. Paid for through ESSER 3 funds.
Based on those recommendations, anybody would like to make a motion?
It's your turn.
I'll recommend, Loomis recommended on this, written on this paper.
There you go.
I second that, Ron.
I have a motion and a second. Go with CDWG, Chromebooks and the sleeves, $110,110 even. Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Now we'll move on to the school.
Mr. Loomis, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You can
Great
leave.
sales
Hang out with us.
He was ready to go out that door.
There's coffee in there.
Thanks.
Lily wore shoes on.
Trustees, on this one right here, this is just to consider. This is not an approval item. We will bring this back in because I just need more kind of your thoughts. What you want to see anyways, our school boards in the main gym are starting to go, and the components for those are no longer existent. So we are going to have to do something to the main gym. My proposal would also be is to add at least a timer and score just in the back gym so that you at least can have games where you have the score and the time, not something that has to be as fandango as the front gym, but something that goes in there. But then we also have the softball field that, we would like to have more than the second strike and the third ball that show up, because otherwise the game gets a little old.
Compatible, that box can be compatible.
That's correct,
with both
yes.
of those.
And that's what I would like to go with, is one that we can utilize in multiple areas. And so the one quote that I was able to get at least gave me the pictures, if that makes any sense. That's why, I gave you quotes in here, but I'm not asking for approval tonight. I was more or less wanting y'all to look at the pictures. Do you want to see something different, as in what's on those types of things? Do you want me to focus on one? Do you want me to focus on a certain set? Those types of things, because those are things we're going to need to look at. Now, if we do go with, and everything that we do from now on in all of our scores will be wireless. So the wireless controllers, we will have to have at least two. And that will be one for the main gym, one for the back gym, and then one of those can also be used at the softball field. So the wireless, they'll be wireless, but we need to have at least two so that we can run the front gym. So that when we have like our youth leagues that play in there, when we have tournaments that, our coaches are trying to work on getting some tournaments here, that, that we have enough that we can do both gyms at the same time, as opposed to only have one controller that can only work one gym.
Our old gym.
Yes.
The school board up that old.
I don't believe that it's,
I thought it was.
That's still that old turkey, that little box that's in
yeah,
there for
and it's,
101
yeah,
meters.
and it's, the inside of,
I think they scored your first basket in there, Danny, on that one.
That pop while it wore it out, Carter. While it was.
So, but that's the other thing is that they're starting to, the components on the inside, and that's what we're trying to get away from, is we're really wanting to try to move into that new system. So one
So
of the
these
things,
scoreboards are both wireless compatible?
all these are wireless. Everything that we're looking at is wireless. And so the one that you're looking at, let's see, the first page would be the one that would be one of two different systems that you can look at. In our main gym, we have the big board. Do we have a small board on the other side? I can't remember.
Yes, it is with score and.
Okay. So this one would be the small one that would go on the one side, but this could also be the same mimic one in the back gym as well.
Right.
So, this would be simply, you wouldn't show the fouls or anything else, but you would be able to see the score of the times, those types of things. Then on the second page is what would be on the large. Yes. And so that one is basically, if I'm correct, is what we currently have on ours. Is there anything that's not on here that you want to see? Is there something that you want to see different? I didn't go for the video screen or anything like that, or the 3D graphics or anything. I didn't go for any of that stuff.
The Tron, what do you call that thing in the middle of that?
I know.
One of them Tron
Yeah.
things.
Go.
Kind of like,
So this thing is compatible with the what do we call that, the
yes.
online?
Yes, and so anything that is wireless will be able to go with the system because it all runs through the same wires. But when our current system, it's wired in, so there was no way to make the two talk to one another. This one will do that, yes.
They'll put the screen in,
The real score, and it will show the real score the whole time.
Okay. What about sponsors?
We can do sponsors. That is an option. One of the two ways that you can look at it is that you can go where they have the ones built into them. My personal opinion on that is that sometimes you get one sponsor that does it, or we can go with more of a sponsorship that we have multiple ones that go around the outside, and we can interchange them out as we go along if we have different sponsors each year or multiple years, whatever we want to. We are looking at a different type of sponsorship.
Booster Club.
Yes. And so Booster Club that is certainly funding that we can look at there. I will tell you that I have talks with a couple of businesses either here or in Sweetwater that are looking to send money our way. not necessarily for this, but they're just looking for some things that they, what is it that we need? So I'm trying to gather a whole list of different things that we're looking at that we want to kind of move forward on. And so I just kind of wanted to get what y'all are thinking visually, and then from there work on getting some numbers and kind of that. But yes, I would love to do some sponsorships. I just don't know what would be the best. It's up to y'all as to what you want to do, but some of them want the ones that are already built into the system. Other ones don't like that necessarily. So I'm up to whatever y'all want to do. I can certainly, I just don't want to go one direction if y'all want to go a different one.
You talking about on the sponsor?
On any of this. I'm just more or less needing some guidance as to what y'all are wanting to see.
Well, I think certainly you'd like to have something in your main gym that's nice. And there's some you can put more stuff, but I think this pretty much for where we're at covers everything. You can put, most of it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And, in my opinion, I think the other one is adequate for the other gym and for the field. That's my personal.
Is that okay with everybody in here?
Sure,
Is
you
that
can spend as much as you want to spend
Sure,
on
yes.
stuff, and
Yeah.
for
I
what?
think that I think the softball field, we've been having a sponsorship, we just put them on the field and it can be removed or removed, but it just shows the community's involvement. That's what I.
Exactly, and that's what we're wanting to do is to move in that direction. So that's what we're kind of.
And that can change, sponsors come and go, and I know initial price, they'll be there, but who knows, you may get somebody say, hey, I'd like to put my name on the scoreboard next year, and you say, all right, well, here it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so that's.
The previous ones, the sponsors, it's on there pretty well set in stone. They pretty well paid for the scoreboard.
Mhm.
So if you approach it that way and then turn around next year, go back and say, hey, you want to buy that again? And they're going to say, hey, we already paid for it more.
Sure.
So I don't know how that's going to break down.
Well, I think it's like anything else, there's initial investment, and even as good as that is for somebody to give you $2,500 or $5,000, I have no idea. But then they just do it one time and expect it from now on. Well, there's maintenance and they don't last forever. And
That's true.
so, I think you offer them a sponsorship and tell them this is initial, but don't guarantee them a lifetime.
See, like we looked when we changed on the football field, we looked back and it was 12, 15 years since it was bought.
Mhm.
And we thought that investment for an advertisement, that was pretty cheap per year.
Yeah.
If you looked at it as an advertisement standpoint.
If you were to go with just this quote alone, if you were just to take these quotes on their face value, you're looking at about, for the two gyms themselves, is about $10,700 for just the two gyms plus the controllers and everything else. For the softball field, you're looking at $3,800. So that's if you take just this one quote on its face value. So yes, that's all included. That's
Included.
that is correct. Yes.
So you're 14.
Yeah, you're looking at essentially right around 14 with this company. Now, I did talk to Coach Tarbutton, and I asked him if he's ever used Nevco. He has used Nevco. I believe he said he used Nevco. Most of them are all the same. You just want to make sure that if you're using one, you're not interchanging. So we currently have some that are Spectrum, and then that's pretty much what we have been is Spectrum and Daktronics are the two that we've used. So if we go with a different company, we just need to kind of make sure that it's going to interchange. So in other words, if we're going to buy the baseball, we probably need to do the same for softball so we can use the same controllers and we're not having to try to compete with one another. And so
You also need to look at the ease of using those controllers someday.
yes. All right. So generic wise, graphic wise, everything else, are y'all okay with what's on these? Is there anything else that you would want on there other than that?
Looks simple to me.
Okay. Well, you could go in and put the one where you put the names, and I'm like, lines and guests, but then you have lady.
How about we and us?
We and them. Okay, that was it. That was all that we had on that. Okay.
Give you the charge to take off on that one. Yeah, now we're gonna move on to make Kendra have to get up and do something.
What we doing?
Well,
It's your turn.
looks like we've got to consider for approval.
Can
of
you
health
advise us on all these
contribution.
decisions we're making?
Oh, that's our ACA. Every year I have to kind of work out a worksheet that just makes sure that we're in compliance with contributions and that health insurance is affordable. I mean, we all know that it's not affordable, but
According to the spreadsheet.
according, yeah. So what I did is go in and put in a certain salary and it multiplies it by rates and blah, 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 that kind of thing. But what I found is that this next year we need to increase it by $15 so that we are in compliance and that it is affordable to the employees. So instead of 185, I want to recommend that we go to 200 for each employee times 12, which would be $2,400 for each employee a year.
And that's if anybody, that's if
take
they
it.
actually use it. So in other words,
And
yes.
so when I
that's-
budget, those people who are not taking health insurance, it's not in there, in the budget. Because I'm only budgeting for the people who are going to. And after enrollment ends, I'll know exactly how many are taking insurance. Because after the enrollment ends, they cannot sign up. So,
September's ours, yes.
yeah, so I'll know the amount. And I do have though in the budget, the new employees, regardless if they were taking it or not, just to make sure, because we don't have that sign up until Thursday in service. So I went ahead and put them in the budget either way. So just so you know. So that's my recommendation.
Any other questions?
Do I?
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Short,
Fair
let's
enough.
do it.
So we need a motion for us to move that $15 up to 200 total.
Make a motion to increase $15 to $200 for
Contribution.
contributions to health insurance for employees.
No second.
Have a motion and a second on the contribution, health insurance for employees. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. So now we've got to consider the board resolution of declaring a hazardous traffic conditions.
All right, trustees, the transportation, student transportation handbook allows for a caveat for school districts to determine what is considered a hazardous road within your school district. And as it currently sits by state standard, you can only receive funding for students that are outside of a 2-mile radius of your school district. So anybody who is within that 2-mile radius, if you pick them up and you were to drop them off at school, you don't receive any reimbursable funds for that. But anybody that is outside of that, you get a percentage per mile that they, there's a calculation for that. However, within that statute, it also allows you to determine roads that you consider as a board as hazardous. Okay, one of the hazards that you can claim is that it is a highway or it is a well-traveled road that does not have sidewalks. Okay, so students that are crossing a road to get to school, either to or from school, you can make that into a hazardous road. If you make that declaration, then those students now become bus eligible and you also receive funding for those students. And so one of the things that we have found, and one of the things that's just kind of been, on my heart is, even when we were in the middle of, pre-snowvid and we had those very cold days, we had students that were walking home. And, it was one of those things that, we could have taken them home, but but you understand what I'm saying is, and that's why we want to make sure that we're trying to do the best we can for all of our students. So what I'm proposing to you guys tonight is to make 180, 70, and Farm to Market Road 419 hazardous roads. So if a student has to cross one of those designated roadways, that is considered hazardous, and therefore then they become eligible bus riders. Now, this is going to be a humongous task in trying to get things ready for day one. So we're going to ask for some guidance and some grace to get through this time to try to make sure that we get everything, where we're going with this. And so with that being said, that is my recommendation is that we go with that and we just approve a resolution stating that directly that we're going to be using those roads, US Highway 180, State Highway 70, and Farm to Market Road 419 as hazardous roadways.
That being said, is that designated or anybody within those markings? Any kid is with in those markings you pick up?
That's correct.
Can you
Yes.
go off that route?
Well, what about this section of?
That is the only one, and that's the only thing. So to answer Mr. Carrion's question first, if they are in any of those designated areas and they cross a road, one of those roads to or from school, they would become eligible to ride the bus. That's what this resolution is saying. That's what the state, the transportation handbook allows you to do is once you make that determination. Now, the only ones that technically would not be eligible, if you look at that map that you have here, would be anyone that is south of 180, east of 409, and west of 70. So that would be anybody within the blocks of the school buildings. So in other words, anybody who is within that group. Okay, so now here's the deal. You can make the determination that, if you still want to pick those kids up, you certainly can. Just understand that those students are not going to be eligible for reimbursement for transportation. Okay, and that's the only thing you need to understand is that anyone who crosses one of those zones, we can get funding for.
The school gets paid.
Yes, and then, again, it's not, we're not busting out the seams.
Right.
Can I say that South Church Street is a heavily used road? And I can show you a lot of traffic going in.
No, you can, and I can ask that, but no, but I certainly can take it, and I can certainly look into that. I don't know. I definitely know that I can get away with state highways, farm to markets. I just don't know necessarily about that part. Now, the nice thing about that is that if we start with this resolution, we go ahead and start the school, let me do a little bit more research on that part, come back with an amended resolution that allows us at that point in time, then yes, we could possibly do something. But I will be honest with you. In my personal opinion is that anyone who lives within the city, regardless of whether what we're going to get funding on the other ones, to me, making sure a kid gets to school is well worth it. And so now that we are no longer running the route from Rotan, that does allow us now an in-town route. So it'll be something that we're going to be working through to make sure that we can get everything done. It is going to be a task. I will tell you, it will be a task in just trying to get a hold of people who are not aware that this is now an option. So we're hopefully, get a lot of our students in during Meet the Teacher Day that we can start doing that, and then we can start calling as many people as we can to try to get those routes set. And so that's one of the things we're working on. On our website, there is also the page that is set up that shows all the markings. So it shows where the students are outside of the city and those inside the city and what zone they live in. And so what we're going to try to do is once we get all of the known addresses, I will batch import those into a Google map, and they will pinpoint on the map all the way through, so we know exactly which zone each one of our students are in. And then at that point, we'll be able to kind of be better at making sure we maximize our routes, just to make sure that we're taking care of our kids as much as we can. So that's my recommendation, is to approve the resolution.
There's a lot of kids in this little area that a lot of kids are walking. And them 18-wheelers and 180 do not care. My son got hit there, and glad that someone was watching that. He didn't get killed. That was an 18-wheeler. It was a big truck with pulling cows, but he didn't have no cows, but it could have been a whole lot worse. But 18-wheelers come through here, 180, hitting gears. Like I said, I've seen it personally seen it done, that is very scary.
And especially, when the time changes and we have kids that are coming to school and it's still that
Oh, yes,
real dark. I mean,
dark.
so there are some definitely things I think that this benefits all the way around. And so if there's a way for us to receive a little bit of funding on top of this, take care of our kids at the same time, I mean, what more could we ask?
It's a good option that they have. It's good to have that option.
So we moving to approve the resolution or make
Yes.
the motion to?
Yes, we're going to,
Motion to
yes.
approve the resolution.
The board resolution declaring the hazards, the,
Hazardous traffic conditions for the 21-22 school year for 180, 70, and 419.
that is correct.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the resolution of the hazardous road conditions for 21-22 school year for highways 180, 70, 419.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the recommendation for the hazardous traffic condition roads. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Board, on the next item, this is a review item. We are not reviewing it tonight. You guys have the policies that are in that, and so you guys will look over that. At the September board meeting is when we will actually have time built in to go over those policies. I just wanted to give you this meeting, one more meeting to ask questions at, and then we'll look at them in September. So I don't want to spend tonight or the August meeting on going over those. Those are in that agenda item. I will add it to the next August meeting as a review item, and then it will be an actionable item in September. Okay.
So y'all read all 125 pages frontwards and backwards.
Most of those policies were from like 19.
Hot. Seven.
There were some 2007s, and then there was a couple that were, there were 2007, 2003, I believe is where they were. Okay, so we're going to hide now.
Well, then we'll just move in to consider and approve the student code of conduct.
Okay, this is going to be Ms. Cole and Ms. McWilliams.
All right, tag team.
Really, actually, Ms. Cole did it, so. So not much changed on the code of conduct. The code of conduct is what the state recommended. Some new things were in there about remediation for those that failed STAR tests and things like that, but we just have what the state recommended in there. So you can look through it, but it's the same as it was before. Nothing new.
And there was no additions. There was no local additions to this code of conduct. It is the sample provided by TASB. So there is no changes to that.
So nothing we can do if we find anything different.
Pretty much.
Take it or leave it.
We went in and changed the dates and added Roby CISD in the blanks. So,
Made it easy.
yeah.
You're supposed to have me done all kinds of work.
Oh, I
stay
did.
up late at night.
Sorry. Not really on that.
Yeah, you should see that when you look at it, look at the manual, the front cover. It's cold, all her, amazing. So I recommend that we adopt the student code of conduct for the 2021-2022 scholastic year.
Anybody will make that motion?
Make a motion to approve student code of conduct for the 21-22 scholastic year.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
I have a motion and a second for the student code of conduct. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Now we move into student handbook.
And trustees, just so you understand, this is just a review item. The student handbook is actually an administrative policy. And so it's really one that you guys can review. If there are things that you would like to see changed, we certainly can change it, but it's not something that has to be an actionable item. So some of the material that you will see in the handbook that you guys have online, it's there. They'll go over the changes, any of the anything that's in there, but a lot of that was legislative changes. And so those were based upon the legislature that we currently are still in the middle of. We're in session number 2. So we'll see where that ends up going. So Ms. McWilliams and Ms. Cole have this one.
The handbook didn't change a lot either. We are going to streamline some There will be an addendum in there where we're going to streamline some discipline, just to make it clear on levels of discipline and kind of what possible consequences could be in that. And just so we're straight across the board on there. And other than that, and some things that the state required that changed in there, nothing changed in that much either. The bus stuff will be in there. The drug policy will be in there since we have the new drug policy this year. That will be in the handbook. When they get the bus stuff off that will be in the handbook. The athletic code of conduct, the extracurricular handbook will be attached to that also. So all those things will be in one spot for people to find and kind of look back at. But other than that, nothing much changed there either.
What about dress code?
Dress code, yes, dress code we made some adjustments to dress code. Piercings, they can use a clear spacer for piercings, and the nose rings that a lot of the girls wear, some boys wear. They can use a clear spacer. Otherwise it gets taken up. We kind of tried to make a concession with them. You can use a clear spacer to hold that spot, but if they wear it and get caught, we're going to take it up. They can have it back at the end of the day, or depends on how big a problem it becomes. But hair to the collar, I think that was it on dress code changes.
No, you mean hair to the collar, like within facial?
No, out of the face. And still has to be shaved, still have to be clean shaven, but just, our new style is the boys are back to the 80s. So with the long hair in the back. So we, some of our boys have mullets. So we did do hair to the collar. On dress code, I believe.
It has said to the top of the collar. So that's where we had a lot of issues. We just kind of said with it, collar gives them a little bit more leeway, but still doesn't go to your waist. So hope that's a compromise that they can live with and we can enforce. But really, there's not much else.
Not much else that changed. Mostly the spacers, because that's the big battle, because that's the cool thing is to do nails, pierce your nose. So
It just makes me hurt.
we tried to,
So is there,
Lip, all the others.
no lips, I guess, no rings, no nose rings, no things like that. So
Allison has that, she goes, I'm like, oh, where did it go? I'm like, tripping.
I don't, the ones that go through the nose,
Yeah, I'm like,
you
where
know,
did it
talking about the ones
go?
I don't see how that, I mean, they do it for cattle, I get it, I guess. I don't know.
Has that more?
Exactly, I'm just saying, my goodness, so,
do you see that there's going to be a push for any kind of gender neutral in that?
well, when I listened to, I zoomed into the state talk about that. Yes, especially in urban areas and things like that. They talked strongly about gender neutral, but they didn't require it. So.
and it also is at that point, very similar to the same thing as, you are the board, and that ultimately, when it comes down to a appeal, it goes through F&G, which means it starts with the appeal at the lowest level, which would be the principals. Then the principals would make their decision. If they want to appeal, it goes to the superintendent. If superintendent makes the decision, they don't like the decision, it goes to the board, and essentially the board has the ultimate final rule. So it's essentially that, but legally, it's a murky situation that, it just depends on what you as a board are willing to accept and what you want to see in your students, and what you're willing to fight for, we'll go for. So that's kind of where we are. Is there anything that you have in the dress code, anything that you have a concern with, or that you would like for us to look at again? Or is there anything you would like for us to see us revise? Is there anything that, based upon what you're hearing now? And again, being the student handbook is one that, since it is an administrative policy, it can be changed. And so essentially, we can address it. And then all we have to do is just notify parents of those changes, and then those changes go into effect at that point. We just want to try to the best of our ability, is to take, the concerns of some of our, the becoming a growing majority of our students, and trying to figure out what is the mid ground. as opposed to that. So it's one of those things, if y'all want to continue with the conservative, we certainly can do so. If you want to find that compromise in between, Ms. McWilliams and Ms. Cole really have done a lot of research as to what is mid-ground in some of that. So it is completely, up to the administrative team as to what we want to do. Please let us know, is there anything that you guys would want to see different, or are you okay with it going this route to see how it works? And then if we need to change it, we certainly can. What's y'all's thoughts?
I'm good with it. I mean, that's the only thing that I've seen was it's pretty well the same dress code and policy we've had. Just I didn't see enforcement in the past, so I don't know if it does us any good to make any changes or not. So that's my standpoint.
The enforcement is the.
That's part of the reason we added the part where it's going to be K-12. We kind of know what every campus is doing, and so it'll be consistent from one campus to the next. So that's kind of the plan with that. So and then the teachers will have a copy of it, so they kind of know what teachers should handle, when to send them to the office, and then how it's going to be handled from there out. So
I have a question on that policy thing, as far as how extreme are you going to try to minimize the backlash on this phone thing? The phones are a big problem. And I see.
They probably middle school more than anywhere. I think the high school does a pretty good job. I mean, coming from high school, at least in the core classes where I was in, the kids don't have time to be on their phone there. I know locker room, things like that, when they have a little more privacy and freedom, is where kids want to get in trouble, especially junior high kids. It's on there. If they abuse the phone policy, I mean, we'll take phones up.
And we do. And the locker room stuff is messy, and that's where we had the most of our problems. Our kids are allowed to use the phone with teacher permission or adult permission, but our teachers turn them in when they don't have permission. So that's pretty common, and the way we've done it in the past is that we allow them a freebie. They have to sign that we had it taken up, next time it'll be a charge, and then they have to pay $15 to get it the next time. So it's not convenient, and I always have to make them come in and tell their parents it's been picked up. So, because we've had them get past that $15 before, and then the parent has to come pick it up according to our handbook. So they don't like that, and parents get pretty upset about it. But we have talked to the coaches already about making sure that locker room is supervised all the time, because that's where the phone was really an issue in that the 6th, 7th grade boy range in the locker room. So we've got to just be proactive and try to keep that from happening at all. So.
And we also have some things, we've identified the areas that we've had the greatest concern, the areas that we needed to improve in. And there are some other teeth within the student code of conduct that allows us to go a little bit deeper when it is something in a locker room or in a bathroom. And so those are part of the actual.
Those are my concerns.
That's right. Yes, sir.
We've adjusted the schedule a little bit this year. So junior high athletics is going to be in the afternoon also, kind of like high school athletics. So we'll have coaches will be on campus in the morning in the more high school and junior high campuses. So they're more visible. So there'll be more people, more adults around to kind of watch kids when they're having between classes, having downtime kind of. So it should help.
I think that was one of our problems in the past. You'd have kids in the gym and no supervision.
Yeah. So the way the schedule will be this year, it'll be different. I think it will help those problems.
I know we tried that years ago as far as junior high being in the evening. Is that going to be an issue towards those that have to ride the bus?
No, it's connected to an enrichment period. So kids that are doing well in their classes can go on to athletics, and so they'll have enough time. It's 7th period, junior high athletics. And so they'll have enough time to go there, have their normal workout that they would have before school or after school, whatever. And then the coaches are willing to let those kids that are struggling in classes spend their enrichment time with their teacher getting help, and then they'll go on to athletics. So
as far as their cross country, are they going to do it at 5:45 like they used to, or are they going to have to do it within that PE class within that class, or when are they going to do the cross-country workout for that junior high?
I assume junior high is going to work out during the junior high period. And now I can't speak for the coaches on what they've decided about cross-country, but football, basketball, those things should be during the athletic period. So.
Good question.
I just know my son used to get up at 5:45 and go cross-country and football practice and go to school.
Which,
and then
when it's 104 outside, they may be asking kids if they want to come at 5:45 in the
You're
morning.
right.
So I don't know, but junior high should be during the period. High school should be the ones that have the after school. And actually, that kind of helps our bus kids because the ones that had to be here early in the morning that couldn't get here because of the bus,
Yes.
this should alleviate that problem for them because it's during the day. So.
And this also allows us the opportunity to have all of our coaches in every single one of our athletics, and they're back to back. So there's no going back and forth, so we can, it's not, I'm in the class, I'm out of the class, I'm in the class, I'm out of the class. It is, I'm in the class. Then when it's time for athletics, it is junior high and high school. It is targeted all the way through, so we don't have to. So I think it'll be streamlined much, much more. And we'll see how it goes. And again, it's one of those things that we bob and weave, we adjust, we monitor. Exactly. And so we address one issue, we figure out if it works. If it doesn't, then we move to a different tribe, and we'll try that until we find out what works best. So yes, sir. But absolutely, we'll check into the cross-country part.
So everybody good with student handbooks that right now? Good. Well, I guess now we'll move on into our budget.
Yes, would you like to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get ready.
You know, I'm checking up on me already. Where you at? Your honeydews ain't done. Or that woman.
Say, look online.
Did you tell her to buckle up? Because we're gonna be here a while.
Oh, no, hey, hold up. Hey, that's not what it was.
We won't be there.
As long as you're like, what's this line, this line, this line. You just trust me, Dan. You just trust me.
You know, I know where we go way back, so you I trust. Now, the other ones, working on that.
Oh.
I believe you probably got the handle on that one.
I can tell you that it is getting easier every year.
Seems like you're getting the hang of it.
A little bit more every year. That lady, they told me at the service center that it takes 3 to 5 years to kind of understand what you're doing wrong without starting to record it. Sometimes it's just something like, oh, that's why I do it this way. Because sometimes I just know I have to do it, but I have a line, and then now it's like, oh, I don't get it.
Everybody wants paper trail.
Yep.
Hello?
Transfer it yesterday.
Should have been.
All right, we ready?
Yes, sir. Somebody's laughing. What happened to T? So.
Oh, he. We're meeting tonight.
So far,
I think Jason might talk about that one real quick and then we'll go into that. Probably.
I'm hearing it's not knocking us down too bad as far as losing.
Oh, no, we've gained,
We haven't heard anybody that's not coming.
yeah, we've not heard of anyone that has turned down coming, so.
That's what I assume, but.
Yes, yeah, no, and even from the ones from Sweetwater, they said, we'll get them there. So that's not we have not had a one.
Good, favor.
All right, trustees, if you guys will look, we'll go through this packet first, just kind of a brief overview of the budget. Down at the bottom of this, these are slides. The top one is slide 1, the bottom is slide 2. Slide 2 just goes through our non-negotiables, which is the safe and positive learning environment, cohesive, challenging academic programs, fostering participation in extracurricular activities, increased post-secondary opportunities for students. On the next page is the last 3 of our non-negotiables. That is strengthening the home-to-school connection, attract, develop, maintain, and high-quality school staff, establish and maintain superior district and campus operations. Our active components, we want to always be accountable, communicating, transparent. We want to keep ourselves involved. We want to always talk about value driven, and we want to look forward to anything that we can do to excel. All right, on the next page is going to be the assumptions. So when we talk about assumptions, we're talking about when we're building a budget, we're building it based upon some assumptions moving forward. And so those are always fun. So the first at the bottom of this one is the expenditures to fund balance. And what you'll notice that our expenditures was 4.005 million. Fund balance is 3.681. So we're sitting at 91.91% in fund balance compared to our expenditures. So we are almost 1 full year of expenditures in fund balance. And so that is a extremely healthy fund balance. And so that's always a good place to be. And so with having a healthy fund balance, what you're wanting to try to look at is that at what assumptions got you there, and if there's any types of changes that you want to make to now that you kind of have a buffer zone within that. So looking at the next page is a little bit of historical perspective on enrollment. So what you're looking at here is the blue bar chart. That is the beginning of year enrollment. So on day 1, when we count enrollment, the first one in the first column is scholastic year 2013. So that was 2012, 2013. We had 245 students on day 1, okay? We ended the year with a refined ADA of 218.684. Does everybody see that at the bottom? So when you look at it, the BOY to RAD assumption, we were at 12.03. So that meant that there was a 12.03% gap between what we started with and what we officially ended with, okay? And as you see across the board, this is what we're looking at. So the blue is what we started with, green is what we ended with and what we were funded on, and the dotted line is the percentage of comparison between what we started and what we ended, okay? So the higher that the percentage was tells us that there was a larger gap. That means that we either messed up or we lost a comparable enrollment. When the closer they are together, that's what you want to see. The closer to 0 means that you have nailed it. I mean, you've got a 99% attendance rate. So that's what you're wanting to look at. So when you take the average across the board from year 1, 2013 through 2022, which is our year we're fixing to move into, you have an average of 8.56% is what we go from the beginning of the year to the ending. Okay. And so what we did is that we built that on an 8.56. Now, from the district's perspective is that that's a pretty good indicator over a 9-year period. That you're not seeing a very large. And when you look across that line that's on that chart, if you draw a straight line, you're almost hitting that line at all times. It's not jutting up and down like this. This tells you something's up. When you have something that is very, very, close together, that's where you can see that you kind of have a pretty good funding template that kind of, you have set up. So when we look at it, at the bottom is the text that from that chart above. So the revised average daily attendance was compared to the beginning of the school year enrollment. And the lowest range was 4.78. The highest was 12.03. The 4.78 was last year, and the 12.03 was in 2013. And so you'll see over time, actually, our percentage is going down with a little bit of a drop and you'll notice that for 2022, that's an assumption of average. That is not what we ended with. Okay, so if you look at it from 2020, we were at 6.27. Then the next year we dropped to 4.78. So even if we keep 4.78, with that same deal, but what I did is I took the average across the door. So I took the high, the low together to come up with one that would be a conservative number. Now, with that being said, if we did an RDA on 321 students, which is what we had when I ran this chart, I believe today, Ms. McWilliams, are we at 320?
321 or so.
Okay, that's where we're still at 321. So even on a 321 at an 8.56% RDA, we're at 293,528. That's what, if we were to assume today that this chart would look like at the end of next year. That's what we assume based upon all of the evidence that we have up to this point. The attendance rates that we assumed from is a 96.34. Now that is based upon the last 4 years of data points. 95.9 in 2018, 96.07 in 2019, 96.20 in 2020, and 97.19 in 2021. So when you average those out, you're sitting at a 96.34. So that's taking it, 96 is a low percentage. You remember that we try to always maintain at least a 97. That's what you want. So what we did is we took the 293,528, we multiplied that by 96%. We just rounded down to 96% to get an RDA assumption of 281,787. We built the budget this year on 272. Is that correct, or 270?
Yeah, last year was
272. Okay, so we're looking at a 9%, a 9-point growth is what we're looking at. Now, with that being said, those numbers can change. You can make the assumption number whatever you choose to. I'm just giving you the reasoning behind what we put in the budget for right now. This does not have to be what is the final budget. This is just for kind of just a starting point, and we can work from there. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this slide, these two slides right here? If I go too fast, or if I, please let me know. I just want you to kind of see historical perspectives, because history really does help when it comes to assumption time. And it's not just based upon, well, this is what we've done in the past. I want you to see it across the board, what was true and what we're sitting at now, so we can make some assumptions that are based upon the needs of the district.
That's good. That's clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So does anybody have any questions on this part? All right. So let's move on to the next page. Earlier in the school year, I talked to you guys about enrollment projections. Enrollment projections is what we do through TEA, and that's what we have to go in and assume for the next 2 years what our enrollment's going to be. And those are numbers that TEA uses when they start their funding templates. So what happens is every single month we get a new summary of finance. You can go to the TEA website anytime and go look at WCISD's funding summary of finance. And every single month, you're going to see one that says preliminary, preliminary, preliminary. When you get to the end, it says near final. And then when you get almost 16 to 18 months after the school year is over, you'll have one that says final. And so it's all based upon the evidence and everything else that we put in. Enrollment projections is a huge portion of that. And so, when we talked about last year, we had an overpayment. So we had to manage that overpayment so that when we have a settle up, they're going to take out the $281,000. We did nothing wrong. We never budgeted it. So it's not like we lost it. It just means that we were given more than what we should have been given. A lot of times you can get that away from having that issue by making sure your enrollment projections are close. So what you're looking at in this chart is you're looking at the line of the dotted line. That is the final enrollment projection that we had for that school year. Now look at 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Do you see the boxes around those? No projections were put in, and I don't know what the reason was, but they were not submitted. And so therefore, TEA made their own assumptions. So you'll notice in 2018, we actually had more money that we were owed than we had budgeted in. And that was because we didn't have an enrollment projection put in. Then for 2019, it was spot on. In 2020, what happened? We had over, and which is a good thing. That's a good thing for us to have over that amount. Then you have the same thing in 2021. So what I want you to understand is that when you look at 2022 and 2023, those are more in line with what our projections will look like. So our numbers with TEA will be much more manageable than what we currently have, because they had us sitting at 312 as an RDA. That means that you're sitting about 350. I mean, that's the difference between that. So I just want you to understand, when you see those, those numbers were not put in for whatever reason. I was not in that position at that point to put those in. So just so I want you to understand that that's why there's a skew when you come to those areas. Anybody have any questions on that part? Okay, the last before we get into the budget is I would just wanted to kind of give you a base of understanding of the chart of accounts, okay? Now, looking at the first one, the general overview, okay? The chart of accounts that you're going to see in the budget items right here, okay? This is the next document we're going to look at, okay? This is the chart of accounts, okay? And so the numbers that you see, this is what it stands for. The first three numbers are the fund, the next are the function, the next are the object, local, organization, fiscal year, program intent, and local. And we're going to go through each of those so you can kind of know what each one of those are for, all right? All the chart of account is that it is just saying where it's coming from. Okay, so in other words, I can ask Kendra, and I do, and it's amazing what she can tell me. But I say, how much did we spend in high school special ed? And she goes, well, go look in 11, 199, 11, da 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 da. And it's because each code has its own words, and so you can find something very, very quickly.
Okay. And by the way, this is what our next board meeting, we'll be doing budget amendments. And so the function codes are what I'm going to be looking at. Per our board policy, we can move money around within functions, but we cannot do, or within each function itself. But to move money out of a function into another one, we have to have your approval. So that's kind of the things I'm going to be doing. So when you look at this sheet, like at the bottom where it has 11 on the left, those are all instruction. So I have to look at that function to make sure we aren't overdrawn on each function. That's how I do budget amendments, because that's an audit finding if you are over. Okay.
So looking at the bottom one, the fund, okay, that is going to be that is the actual state or federal government or by the district. And so you have 199, which is our general fund. That's local money. That's our local money. And then you have 240, which is cafeteria. Those are the two that you approve. Okay, you approve 199 and 240. Those are the only two that you technically approve, because the other ones are state funding. So those have specific guidelines as to what we use those for. And so those are actually just built into the codes already. So you're looking at it from the local perspective. This is the local money coming in. This is what we expect our money to be used for. Does that make sense? Okay, so look on the next page, you have function. Okay, function is generally, that is just where it's actually located. So
that's going to be 11.
Instructional materials, those types of
12
things.
Library, like 36 is extracurricular. Those are going to be the numbers you see on the very left.
So when we get to that, you'll see that. Okay. Object is going to be 6100s are like payroll. And so you can look at things. 6200s are
contract services and repairs.
63 is going to be
supplies.
And then 64
miscellaneous.
Okay, so each one of those is going to have one of those. And so that's how you identify, number one, where it is and what it's being used for. Okay, looking on into the next page is going to be the object code, or Local options is just something that we do, we don't, but,
I use those numbers. If I have multiple, like you'll see in here in 11 function, you'll see supply budgets for everyone's names. Those those two numbers, those sub objects are how I differentiate between each person. That's all it is. It's a local decision. I can use whatever I want. You can even use letters there if you want to, but I will not do that. It just makes everything complicated.
That's the power spot for her. She just feels like she has power. She can put whatever she wants in there, and so that's what that one's there for. Organization would be 001 is high school, 101 is elementary, those. So that's what you're looking for there. Even though we are a K-12 campus, we still have 001 and 101 because there are some of the reports and stuff that we have to run that we need to look at exactly what. Yes. So like how much are we spending in elementary versus high school? Those types of things. The next page is fiscal year. Now, fiscal year is based upon the ending of the one number. So in other words, this coming up school year, the ending year is 3. It's 2023, correct? Or is it 2? Are we on 2?
21, 22.
Okay.
So that number where it says program code, where it says 2, that's what the year 2022 is. That's all that is.
Right. And so like this year was a 1. Okay. And so that's how you notice.
For every 10. So.
The next one is the PIC code, which is the program intent code. Those are actually used so that we can identify, certain things. So like whenever we need to know what special ed expenditures were for a report to USDE, then we can go in and find the PIC code and we can see exactly how much we spend in that. So it's more or less just kind of like a bookmark. And those are the only things. Now, the last page that you'll have, this is one that I think at the very, very bottom, this little chart right here, this is one right here, this chart. Okay. This one right here, I think helps some people understand the difference between approved budget, earned revenue, and fund balance. Okay. Essentially, everything that we get in the district is all in one fund. I mean, it's all in the same bank account. Nothing has separate bank accounts. It's all within one. Now, the approved budget is what you guys will set on August 30th. Okay. Now that's, remember, off the assumptions of what we feel like that we're going to bring in revenue wise. Now this year, did we bring in more than what we budgeted? Okay. So what we budgeted is in green. What we earned is in blue. Okay. And then what's in the fund balance is still out there. Okay. So now this is the reason why some people are very ultra conservative, and they say, you know what, we may bring in 300 kids this year, but you know what, I want to set it at 250. Okay. I want to set it at 250. So you set your budget at 250. Now we start drawing in all this extra revenue. That extra revenue can't be touched until the board approves and puts it into the budget. And so therefore, sometimes that hinders you in what you're able to provide to your students and your staff, because the money is not allotted for. So there's nothing you can do until such time as the board decides to bring the money back in. That's why you want to try your best, or my recommendation is to balance out between how much blue that you are going to have, because you want to make sure that you have enough in your budget that you can provide the resources without waiting till you get to a board meeting and asking for more money to come in and more budget amendments coming in. You want to try to eliminate that to the best of your ability. Okay, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that part? Okay, we are done with this part. Now we're in the budget. Okay. If your head starts hurting, you're not the only one. I will assure you of that. All right, so when you look at the first set of lines, that's the OOs, that is actually income. That's money coming into the district, okay? So you're looking at the top one, taxes current year. That's how much we're projected to look at is 1.489383. That's what we're projecting to bring in, okay? When you look at the rent, that is taking in assumptions that all of our housing is full all year long. Okay, that's what we're building our budget on. Now, you can go in and say, listen, what if we don't want to do that? What if we don't what if we don't want to assume that that's how much is going to be in, then you can drop that number down. When you drop income, then it makes your expenditures, you've got to go back in and adjust expenditures, because what you're wanting to do is to come out to a zero, okay, AKA a balanced budget. Local revenue, that's just if you have, what would be local revenue? It's like any money that comes in just from outside, whatever it is.
It's not something typical.
Daycare revenue is in there, rent is in there. Then our foundation payment, foundation FDS, that's how much we're estimating is 2.505,958.00. That's based upon the 280. That's based upon the assumption that we have of 281,787. TRS on behalf, Ms. Lake, if you'll go over a little bit of that part as to what TRS on behalf is.
Well, these numbers, as you can see, like just for instance, the TRS care on behalf, the bottom one that has the 583102, that's not something that we are, like you can see at the very left, 2019, 2020, that's 6,281. That was, they tell you owe this. So what I do is I budget that revenue, and it's contract counted in 6144, which is an expense account. So what happens is, just go ahead and, we may not have to pay that this year. They just kind of tell us at the, very end. That Medicare Part D on behalf, that is paid every year, but on the left where you can see it 00, I haven't made that journal entry this year yet. So it doesn't have an actual amount from what we spent. The last year it was 10,373, and you will see that entry whenever I'm closing end of year stuff. So, it's just, the TRS care on behalf is also, by the system, it is projected. So it's not something I'm going over here and making, calculations. It does it itself based on our payroll and all that.
When you look at the columns, the first column, which is the 2019, 2020, that is the closing amount. In the year 2019, 2020, that is what was, that's what was spent in the account. Okay, not was budgeted. That was what was actually spent. When you look at the third column, just disregard the second column. Look at the third column that says amend budget. Okay, that's the amended. So that's how much that was amended in the budget for us to use. And then the fourth column is what we actually used.
The fourth column is up to date right now. These numbers will change before I close the year. So any numbers that are right here, this has not hit, the fourth column has not hit August payroll yet. So any of these you see, it's not our last payroll yet too. So when we get into payroll, you'll see that, well, we only spent this much this year so far. Well, we still have August, so those kind of things. The fifth column is what we're gonna recommend we put in the budget, okay? All right. You want to do?
Change column.
I'm sorry?
Then you got your little percent change column.
Yeah.
And that one is for some reason, it's not.
It's not pretty. It's not, I don't think it reflects.
It's weird because there's some of them that are correct and some of them that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And
So that's our estimate based on what they tell us, or what?
Which one?
The percent interest?
No, that is just taking from next year's recommended to what was amended this year. So in other words, it like on the
It's
first
a
one.
change. It's a change in amount.
So the taxes increased, it was 10.73 increase from last year to what we're recommending this year. But see, like some of these say 9,999,000%.
Well, what that goes up,
That's
it's just
like
$30 over
infinity.
here.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It doesn't always necessarily mean
It's
that
because we're only estimating 10,000 when we got 60,000 so far this year. So it's like, oh, this is way too much.
Yes.
Or not enough, I guess really mathematically, but
Is it not reflective of the 1920 year closing?
I don't think so.
$3 over 10,000 would be
no, because it should be percent increase from this year to the next year. So it should be,
I don't, yeah, I really try, I don't look at that as much. I look at what do I have budgeted now and compare it to what I like closed with. I guess it's the same. Anyway, I don't know. I just look at the line and I know that that looks wrong, you know?
Right.
Because I've looked at it so much.
It's like staring at the matrix.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, I told Jason this earlier, is I was just going through here and I was like, oh, well, that looks weird because I didn't have Michelle coded as principal. And so it had last year's salary in there and I knew that wasn't her salary. So I was like, oh, that's wrong. So I had to just change the coding for her to be in principal instead. So I don't know. It's hard to explain if I just haven't looked at it 100 times.
That's how you balance out.
Yeah. So anyway, well, we'll start moving down here. Functional evidence and instruction. This is where all your teachers, most of your teachers are going to be.
You'll look at the four codes, guys, it's 6,100. 6,100 is payroll.
Anything in 6,100. 6119s are professional, 6129s are your paras, okay? So there's sublines there. There's all these, like where you see dyslexia, salary and things, the PIC code where it says 37, I'm required on to do a percentage from the summary of finance to spend that money. I have to. So it has to be, a certain amount has to be coded in this line. So you'll just go through here and look, all of this is salary. The next page, it's gonna see all your 61.4s. These are all by the system. When I put in someone's payroll, it is all calculated by the system, as long as you have the percentages incorrect in your main screen, all that. So page 2, page 3, and then at the very top to page 4, that's all payroll. And then you're gonna have the 6200s on page 4, right in the middle. You're gonna have your contracted services. So all the money that we pay to the service center, anything like that, that's where they are. And then down below is 6300s, that's our supply items. So that's gonna be a long list. It's gonna have anything from tech supplies to anything we would use for instruction. So if you wanna just glance down those lines, kind of see if you have any questions. On page 5, you'll see the supply lines with names next to them. Those are our teacher supply lines. They get $75 for their classroom. You know, we try to give them a little something. So each one has their own name by it. So at the very bottom of page 5, there is a line for a contingency account. This is where you kind of pad, I would pad instruction and maintenance. If I have any money there left over, as you would say, this is where I'm going to stick those amounts, because that's where 11 and 51 are where I spend the most money, maintenance and instruction. So at the very bottom, you'll see 80,000.
Transportation usually a good one.
Transportation would be, yes, I think I have some in there too. We don't have any in this one this time, but I mean, like I said, that's easily moved around by y'all's approval. Is this fun?
What code number was that?
All right, moving on, guys. If there's anything that sticks out to you, please just ask. I should know. 12 is our librarian stuff. We'll have an aide working on that this year, so I'll have a full salary in there. 13 is your professional services. That'll be professional development, things like that. And then 23 goes into your administration of your principals, and you'll see salaries there. There's not a whole lot in the principal account besides salary and just a few supply lines. That's about it. Dues and memberships, those kind of things, into page 7. And then 31 will be your counselor. She'll have her test supplies in that account, that's page 7, bottom of page 7. Alright. Is there anything sticking out to you guys?
Well, superintendent, is his not in the,
It'll be in 41.
okay.
Yeah, 41 is me
Make sure we
and
leave it.
Carter. That's the, that administration area. So,
You essentially have campus administration and then you have district.
Gotcha.
And then if you'll notice also, just on the next year's recommended, if you see a line, dot line, that is a 0. That means nothing has been entered. Okay, and so that means either we're not using it this year or it's a blank. So if you see that, that just means that either you can input something with your pen or not, but that's what that's there for when you see those.
yeah, and it's usually not, it's usually something that's very low amount, if anything gets put in there, like a couple bucks, like food. And then on page 8, still, you're gonna have your nurse budget, which is 33. Not anything big there. Again, 34 is our transportation. This will be a big thing. This is where we're going to pay our fuel, where we pay our bus drivers stipends, maintenance and repair, those kind of things for buses. Like Chris said, this would be a good place for contingency if we have it, but you can see in 34, 66, 31, that's where I coded a bus. That's where our bus is this year. So that 63, 934, that's what we've spent in that this year. Obviously, there wasn't a budget.
We had talked about it when we bought this bus. Our fleet was going ahead and adding one every year. Do we have room to?
We might have room to have some
It
money.
depends. That's going to be, once we get to that, after seeing everything in here, that what we need to start off with the assumption of what you guys want. What do you want us to put in as the assumption? And then from there, then we need to prioritize where we want our contingency money to go. And so that's what we want to make sure is that we kind of have just a starting point. Then from that, then we're going to start talking about where do we want those contingencies to fit. And then after that, then we can kind of start getting a little bit closer to when we get to that August 30th, that we have a pretty good nail-down budget. Does that answer?
And this budget, honestly, this budget is not a perfectly zero balanced budget. It'll show at the very last page that the expenditures are higher than the revenue. However, there's contingency money in here that we can move around to balance that. It's not like we're over, it's just we don't know where we want to put that stuff yet. So 36 on page 9, extracurricular. Those are just first page of that, salary lines, your coaches, cheer stipends, those kind of things. Page 10.
That's another one we usually put contingency in.
Yeah. Yes, I don't think we did this last year. We did this last year. I didn't put any money there. Actually, where I put the money was in 81, and that's a lot of that covered the trailer is where that came out of. So page 10, drug testing services, we bumped that line item up to 7,000 because we're going to be drug testing more this year. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Officials lines went up. Remember, they always raise prices on those. Our athletic trainer, we took out line items for band stuff, obviously.
It is.
And then through the bottom of that is supplies for all of our sports and extracurricular activities, which would include One Act Play, UIL, those kind of things are going to be in there. Page 11.
Those are contingency.
Page 11, you'll have all your 6400s, which will be how we buy meals and travel and things like that for our athletes. One Act Play is in there. You'll see a few things for our insurance for the kids who may get injured. That's in there as well in the 6400s. Okay, and then you get to 41, which is your administration of your superintendent, your business managers. All those salaries are there through the bottom of 12. And then page 13, these are a big line item in this one is our audit amount that we pay to our auditor every year. That goes up every year. It's just the thing that does. Another thing that is of note is that we got a new time clock software, and that is costing us a lot less money this next year. Not a lot, but I mean, for a time clock software that works better. It's only $275 a year, so compared to $1,400. Workbook stuff, they do policy updates on that all the time. Supply lines, postage, travel for that board, all the board stuff comes out of 41 as well. All right. 51 is your maintenance. We have our overtime there, all the salaries for those guys and ladies. Let's see, page 14. A big part of the maintenance budget is all of our utilities and things like that.
One of the things that I'll say is Candor and I have been working, and this has been kind of a difficult process in the budget. Again, last year, I essentially we were kind of thrown together to start a budget. Really didn't have a lot of time to really discuss. And so what we're trying to do is streamline the coding so that Candor can more, and this is not a dig at her, but can more accurately code them to the right area so we know exactly. So like on that board book, not all of that may have been board book. It may have been TASB board policy. So we just want to make sure that the line items are reflecting what it is. And so I think we've got a system in place but those are things that we're trying to come up with is that make sure the description and what we're utilizing it for is the same so that when we do get to the end of the year, we can see exactly how much we used and not it's really overpriced when it really wasn't. It's just another line item wasn't used instead. So that's what we're really wanting to try to get to the point of is to kind of clean that up.
Yeah. And then contingency will be where did that go? 40,000 in contingency right here just for padding. But we're more than can move that around for whatever y'all would like. Property insurance, you'll see it's $40,000 right there. That'll be to the TASB Risk Management Fund. That's who we use. I think Jason's talked about that in other board meetings.
Yes, remember we talked about, we approved it this year, but that we have notified them ahead of time that we will be going out for bids next year.
That's just one line. So that's just the property line. 53 is data processing, I believe. So that'll be your tech stipend. Some things that we pay to this service center, like the stuff that they do for us in terms of, I don't know how to explain that.
Where we have
computer stuff and data processing. It's just computer stuff that they help us do. It says Texas software and stuff. That obviously should stay a center now, but we pay a lot of money for that, for them to keep that up to date for us and those kind of things. And then 61 is our daycare. You'll see the salary come out there, that bottom of the first page of 14. And then I also am going to do a better job this next year of splitting utilities and things like that come out of daycare, just so we can see exactly what they use there. I mainly just did the telephone this year. I'll have to get addresses exactly where everything is to do the electricity, the gas, anything like that. And we'll do some maintenance and repair codes out of there. And then we'll do some, we have a supply line there that Misty goes and gets supplies for the kids every week or every other week or so. And then 81, you'll see it has building purchase. This is where I coded the trailer. So you can see that we spent, y'all allotted us 60,000, I believe. We spent 52,850 on that. So, and that's with electricity
Just by the
hookups,
way,
all those things.
$7,500 less.
Very good. Very nice.
All right, and last thing is 93, which is the tri-county payments that we paid to them for an SSA to help us deal with special ed and all the other things that they deal with, and that's a big help. 99 is tax, where we pay our quarterly tax payments to Fisher County and Jones County. And that's it for 199. And then very quickly on 16 and 17, this is our cafeteria. At the very top, you'll see revenue. And then underneath that, the state stuff, what we estimated. I mean, we estimated last year for 33,000 and 53,000 in that state revenue, and we ended up bringing in so far 51,088. So we underestimated what we would get, and I think we're getting a higher contribution rate next year. So.
Well, and that's the free lunches, and we're getting reimbursed on that. And so this is something that I would ask for you guys' help and preferably newspaper as well on this is that we are allowed to offer free meals this year as well, but it is imperative that our parents fill out the free and reduced lunch form, even if we are still free, because our Title I funding is based upon the numbers that we receive from those forms. So if all of our parents who qualify for free and reduced lunches decide this year that they're not going to fill it out because it's automatically free, then we are going to lose a massive amount of Title I funding, which is really honestly a detriment from the state and the federal government that they're allowing that, making schools beg and plead for that paperwork. So when you talk to parents, please encourage them to fill out the paperwork, even though that they qualify, because the nice thing is if they qualify this year, it actually goes for 2 years. So if they qualify now, they're good for 2 years. If they don't qualify in August and they try again in October, they can qualify then and it goes for 2 years. And so it's actually a forward one. So they're helping us in that area. But the danger is if we don't get the percentage that we need of our Title I, that we could be in serious trouble of losing some of our Title I funding. So that's imperative that we make sure that our parents understand that we still need that.
All parents need to do it regardless, or
preferably we would love everyone to fill it out, because sometimes you don't know you even qualify for it. And the deal is that we want everybody to understand that the information, yes, it's asking for a salary information, but we want to try to encourage parents to understand we do our best to keep every bit of that confidential. We just need to see if someone's going to qualify, because if they qualify, it doesn't mean you use it.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of our parents who, yes, they may struggle, but they don't want a government handout, and that's okay. And I totally respect that, but you're also leaving money on the table that could come to the school district that we could use towards our students. So it's a double-edged sword. Yes, you can pay for your meals if you want to, but we want to qualify as many as we can for the school district, because every one that we qualify for is more money for the school district that we can use towards services to our students. And so that's the big thing there. So I'll be quiet. Go ahead and sleep.
Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Do you happen to know if given the pandemic and everything, that all that has shifted because of that, do you happen to know if the structure and the criteria to meet that free and reduced has changed?
No, it's still the same thing. It's just they put a moratorium so that we can qualify again by just doing the seamless summer option. But anyways, from my understanding is on the TDA website, it's all the same. It's just that everyone qualifies this year. You don't have to fill out the paperwork, but schools still need that paper filled out.
So just do it, people. Thank you.
Yes. Kendra wants to go home. Did y'all notice that? That was what she meant by that. Just, that was a kind of a nice way of saying it.
Not really, but I mean, I'm just saying. Okay.
Kendra's usually in bed by now, so.
That's not a lot.
We get to put a face with the
Yeah.
books.
And then Jason's emailing me at midnight, still awake working. I'm like, golly, go to bed. But anyway, 240. After that, I mean, there's nothing significantly different in this as from last year. Salaries, we have our software we have to pay for every year for the keep the meals in line. Food, we're gonna budget 90,000 for food. USDA donated commodities, that will probably be around the same this year. I mean, we spent 7,700 last year. I have to do a.
Now, so what's that going to affect us?
Yeah, it's just
It doesn't really affect us because we do most of it on our own. It's not.
So pricing.
It's not expensive. It was actually cheaper to be out of the co-op than it was to be in the co-op.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just so y'all know, we made it big this year. We just completed a cafeteria audit. And when did we finish that?
a couple months ago, maybe.
Just a couple of months ago, and we just received notification. Guess what? We get to do it again. Another cafeteria audit, right after the one we just finished.
And it's just for an SSO, and they said it's an abbreviated audit, but we still have another one. Okay.
There needs to be a liquor allowance for miscellaneous on that one. Yes, so that's.
There is a oven that we budgeted for that last year, so we don't have that.
We don't have any.
No, we don't have that this year, so you'll see that line is a zero at the bottom. And then, I'm sorry?
Yes, it's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a line item budgeted. It's just not, there's nothing in it this year. And so.
We want to hit the budget.
Yes, it's more or less, I mean, what we'll probably do with it is we'll probably just put contingency. We'll just change the word oven to contingency and leave the line item there, just so it's there. It doesn't do anything for us.
Or I can change it to like furniture or to like equipment or something like that, if we had to buy something. Yeah, just in case.
A liquor dispenser.
Smoothie one.
And then the last page is on page 17, you'll see open transfers in, and that money that's there, it was 66,000 last year. That's just the money that we have to transfer in and out of general fund if we feed our kids. I mean, that way.
Balances out a little bit.
There it is. But the 240 is balanced to zero. So that's just what I'll just play with that open transfers there to balance that. So other than that, like I said, the budget shows that we're over right now, but we are not. We're just gonna move stuff around to get it balanced out. And then those numbers at the very back will match, just like the 72,049 of that's what the cafeteria is right there. So the other resources and uses is the cafeteria. And other than that, what other questions do we have, guys?
So with that being said, and kind of just having a brief overview of that, is that the bigger questions that we need to have, guidance on is, where do you want to see contingencies built? Number one. And then what do we want to set? Where do you want the budget set? What do you want the padding to be, as in when we talk about the RDA number that we set it at 8.56 is that, and the reason why we want that is because on day one, we will find out what our enrollment is. And so we want to be able to plug that number in with whatever our enrollment is, and that automatically gives us, this is what we're working off of. And so right now we're setting it at, right now we recommended it sitting at 8.56. Now, the more conservative that you want to be, the higher that number needs to be. The less conservative that you want to be, the lower that one needs to be. The average is you're sitting at 8.56. What do y'all feel that you want to start with? Because the deal is that I would love for us to get to a point, and this is just my personal opinion, we'll do what you want to, but is not to just start off the year arbitrarily with a number, but more or less based upon what our needs are with our student population of that year. So in other words, if we have 250 students, that whatever our padding that we want to go with, that's going to dictate what our budget is. It's not based upon 272 every single year. It's that if our enrollment goes up, then our expenditures need to go up because we are going to have more things that we are going to need to do versus the years that we don't have as many. So that's a question that we need to kind of know assumption wise as to, do you just want to build it on a straight number and call it good? Or do you want to go with more of the recommendation of, a percentage of based upon the average overall, being that that's more of a calculation, that's more of a business calculation. It's kind of how we do, in the regular business, world as to getting to that general number. What y'all's feelings on that?
You need to evolve. You need to evolve as it goes, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to, your span of getting what you need to get is not going to be there. If you go small, you're going to be limited. If you go too much percentage to the percentage part of it, you're going to get able to have more to grab from.
Yes. And then one thing and that's why we always bring the budget numbers to you every month, is so that we all are looking at it every single month. And I can assure you guys, I look at it every week, sometimes on a daily basis, just to make sure that we're monitoring where we are. Because if we start to see that we have a drastic enrollment change, then that immediately means that we're going into mode of taking money out of some of the budget items to put into another fund. So we know at the end of the year that we are going to have a balanced budget. So we're always monitoring. It's not just we set this and forget it. It's something that we continually evolve and look at as to what are we doing with it. But whatever we set our budget with is what we have to play with. But if our number is too low, then we have all this money sitting out here that we can't touch until you guys release that money into the budget. So
when does the legislature give you? They do. When do they give theirs to let you have a little better idea of what you get?
We just got those, and so we know essentially where we are. We have already got the calculations, and for the most part, they're pretty much set. The one thing that we do know that's coming, that's not assumption, it's assumptive at this point in time, is CTE. CTE funding weights went up, and so for level 1 and level 2 courses, there's a percentage, and then those that go up into other ones will get even more funding. So we do feel like we're going to get some more funding on top of it, but we do know the basic of understanding of what our FDS is going to be this year. So do y'all feel like the 8.56 is enough? Do you want to go up? Do you want more padding? Do you want less padding? Are you okay with that number? What y'all's thoughts?
Can you, do an assessment of where you look at the students? Are they high risk on leave? Is there a way to
honestly, to tell you the truth, the majority of the ones that we have taken are lifers. Okay. we don't, once we get them here, we very rarely have anything. And that's why we want to always build it upon that space number and then off of an attendance number. So then we have 2 double paddings that we can go off of. So I really don't anticipate us having.
So I'm a little bit confused, and I think I'm just not understanding, but You're saying the 8.56%, but that's what you begin with versus what you end with.
Correct. So in other words, what we will do is that whatever we start the year with, we will make that calculation at that point, and that will tell us what we believe that our RDA at the end of the year will be.
But you were saying the higher, you want it to be higher. You want that to be lower. You want your students to be higher.
So the more percentage that is, the wider it is between what you started with and what you ended with, which means there's more padding, that if something goes wrong, that you have room. The lower that number is means that those numbers are going to be closer together, so you don't have near as much to play with if there's something that does go wrong. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what do we want to know where we want? I know it's where we want the end line.
So
number.
Essentially you have the number of 12, which is probably ultra conservative. That's ultra conservative. Yeah. And then you have 4, which is probably what I would say is the least conservative. And you have about an 8% padding if you stay at an average. So, that's that to me, I would recommend to stay at that. That's my personal opinion. But
To stay at 8.56?
yes, because that's where our average is. And when you look across those years, all the way
Yeah.
across, that number has not changed. There's not a lot of changes between. And so that, I mean, there's really a dip, and a dip low is a good. Dip low is good.
What I was trying to fit, just thinking in my mind, of course, our brains all work different, but I'm thinking, well, we do have more kids, so we do potentially need access to more things
Correct.
to be able to spend. And so I just roughly did a guesstimated percentage of where we ended versus where we're starting. And so that's basically 105% or 5% increase, which would be your assumption of 281.787. Well, with that simple calculation that I did, it comes out to 285. So now I don't know what that makes
Okay, so when we talked about the RDA, when the RAD at 293 with that 856, then we take that, because that's what we expect to be at the end of the year. Then we take 95% of that, which is our attendance rate.
Yeah.
And that attendance rate drops it even below that to that 281,787, which is where I would suggest that we do. I understand what you're saying, as in the percentage between. What I was looking at was the number of students we started
Yeah.
with and what our actual at the end of the year, taking into account attendance rates, taking into account weighted average, weighted ADAs, those types of things, all the calculations that go into the basic raw number. And so we can do it either way. I mean, there's no right way to do this. There's none.
Well, I'm good with that number. I was thinking I would be willing or comfortable with
Okay.
raising that much
I got you.
more if
Sure.
that was something that we felt like we would needed to have funds available to.
Now, the other thing that I would like you, and we talked about contingencies for the bus, and we have talked about that we have raised the hourly employees in pay, but then we based upon numbers, the salary for the general the teachers, we weren't able to really hit that very much. And so one of the things that we can do is put a pot of money, okay, not a pot, but just the contingency pot, and leave it blank. So leave it at zero, okay? And it's just an empty cup that's sitting here. And then as we get that generated extra funding that we get, we make sure that the number one contingency that we pour into is X amount for either teacher retention or teacher, that type of deal, so that pot's taken care of. Then if we want transportation to be first, we make sure that pot's filled up first. Then we make the next pot. And then so what that does is at the end of time, because we almost have a year's worth of fund balance, again, taking into account that we have a bond that we have no clue what's fixing to go into, that's why we want to make sure that we have that, but we have those pots that we want to be our priorities that we work towards. And so we don't want to overextend ourselves, but at the same point, we don't want to undercut ourselves either. And so that's going to be the fun part, is trying to figure out exactly what you guys are comfortable with, because at the end of the day, this is your money. Yes, I pay taxes too, but this is y'all's money. And so I want to make sure that, you guys are comfortable with, and you can go out to the community at large and talk to them as well. But, if we go with the 281,787, what would be the priorities of contingencies? Bus number one, or is there a different contingency that you would like to see put into place before bus? Would you like to see payroll first? Would you like to see bus first? Would you like to see, what would be your next step?
And the bus, that's depreciation. That's a must, safety of the kids and having, that
Transportation.
transportation, we've got
I
to
absolutely agree.
set that aside
Okay.
first,
Okay, what would be your next? Does anybody disagree with bus?
No, that was a discussion we had last year.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
We're going to
Yes,
get
sir.
to, and
Absolutely.
I think,
What would be next?
did we already put in the budget for the vehicles? You said that vehicles are getting pretty old. That was last
We-
year. We did get one.
We didn't put it in yet, because what I wanted to do was to just give you a general and then go back and say, okay, if that's the case, now we're going to finalize these budgets. So when we bring it back to you on the 30th, that contingency is already built in. And then we'll have the other ones that may not have very much in them, with the understanding that as new money comes in, that we will pour into those until we have it set over to the side we won't touch until said time that we want to do that. What would be the next one? And when we talk about the payroll, one of my thoughts on that is that, we do the 1.5% Christmas or winter incentive Black Friday sale, let's be honest about that. Is that if you do that, what we could do is that take half, so take another pot of 1.5%. We already know what that is. We have that money setting aside. Half of that money is given to the staff at the last day of school. The second half of that money is given to all those that return for August in service. So it's thank you for staying and thank you for returning. Does that make sense? And so you can split it up that way if we have the money. If it's a good year, we have that money set over. It's kind of the same concept as profit sharing. If you have a great year in your company,
Well, we did, I think we talked about that to try to, if it's possible, as far as whenever everything goes, to try to equal that out accordingly as we need to.
yes, and that's what I want to make sure is that whatever we set our pots of money up for, that we fill those coffers first before we do anything else, because we want to make sure that those are filled, those are set, and then if there is an emergency, that we know the priorities that we're going to go for first. And that's kind of where we want to go. That's my opinion. And so what would be the second one? Kendra, where were the contingencies that we currently have?
We have one in 11 and one in 51. So it's $120,000 worth of contingency, but.
So we have one in transportation.
But if we take into account, there's one in instruction in 11 and there's one in 51 right now.
And 51's transportation, right?
So if we go off of this budget right here.
What would be any other areas
we have left? If we go off of this budget, what we would have $40,000 to put in a contingency.
Maintenance
Off
would
of
be
this,
another.
no. So $40,000 would be your contingency money right now with this budget and the revenue that we have estimated. Because right now, it's not a balanced budget for her that.
Correct.
Because everything else hasn't poured in yet.
We do have some of that. Also, we do have some additional funding that's coming in from state and federal resources that we very easily could pull out of general and take out of a different funding source, which opens up more funding for our general. And that's what we're really working right now is that, if I can get all the teachers here in their classrooms and then I can close the door, then we can really sit down and really start doing that. But I just, and really tweaking those little things to try to eke out as much as we possibly can. That's going to be our goal, is to make sure that we're really trying to take and maximize all of our funding sources to get a budget that, the local funds stay local, federal, state goes towards the things that it can go for, and we don't leave any money on the table.
Well, there's so many different things and you'd have to take plenty of time to see what takes precedent. Obviously, transportation is one, but I do think, we've talked about it, different plans and different things, but trying to keep, encourage, whatever, your good teachers, those that have been with you, you can't pay none of them probably what they're worth, but I do think that's an important part of the overall deal of what we're trying to do here, and keeping them happy, which I think we've heard that they haven't all been happy the last couple of years. So,
and we are working on that, and so that's one of the things that we are doing a lot of different things to try to rectify a lot of the stuff if we can. And so, but that's definitely another pot of money that we definitely need to. And it's not that we have to set anything up. I don't need to know that you want 60 in this. I just want to know what contingencies that we want to build in. And then what we'll do is we'll put those line items in, and then we'll start working with the budget based upon all the assumptions. And then we'll have a better grasp for you guys on the 30th that we can sit down and say, this is where we're closer to.
How are you on construction? How's everything going there as far as, did you get anything as far as the fence line on the football field and some of those things, did we touch the bases on any of that construction?
Okay,
building, like I know we talked about building that fence in front of football. It was kind of damaged or rusted out in a lot of places. As far as in general?
No, we have not gotten any of that yet, but I mean, we do have, I mean, there is funds within this that we can start working on those general project. But yes, that is another area that we have, I mean, that we're going to have to start addressing is those areas like you're talking about. So that's another contingency we're going to have to build in is that kind of the infrastructure.
I didn't want to jump ship on something direction. I didn't know what.
Yeah. And those are things that we are definitely wanting to try to get in. So yes, that's another contingency that I would like to put in as maintenance, is just make sure that we're maintaining. One of the other things that's also in this budget is that a service contract through Carry Services, who will actually do all the maintenance of all of our air conditioner units. They'll do the filter changes. They will do everything because our air conditioners that are on the junior high and the elementary buildings, we're fixing to start, I mean, not fixing to, but we want to try to extend those lives as much as we possibly can. So we want those to be on a priority maintenance schedule so that we do not have to start making any massive purchases on that building while we're in the middle of doing construction projects. So we want to make sure that we have them on a priority schedule. And really honestly, for what they're doing, they're doing everything, not just that building. They're doing every AC unit that's in our district. And so that's one of the things that's built into the budget already so that we can make sure that we are not tearing up our facilities before we have to start paying for it again. So that's kind of what we're trying to do is to identify the areas that are of high need and, buildings, fences, those types of things to start on the top. Everything okay with that? Is there anything else? Is there anything else that y'all see concerns that you guys want us to address or want to ask questions about? Because again, we want to make sure that we're building a budget that's going to last us for the year. It's going to be an exciting year. I mean, it really is. I'm excited for where we're going. I think that we've got a good plan in place. I think we've got a lot of great people doing a lot of good things. And so we're ready to rock and roll. So we just need to make sure that the money is in the right spots to make sure the rocks can roll where they need to. So.
That looks about like a $350,000 to $400,000 increase.
And then also on top of that, for the daycare, we are still in talks for the federal funding reimbursement. Ms. McWilliams, how much was that? Do you remember?
Around $10,000.
Something along those lines. So that's additional funding that's coming in just to plan on top of some of the daycare expenses that we had during COVID, those things. So those little things like that will also matter when it comes time to start putting budgets in. So, I mean, every time we can find a grant, everything we can do. Another thing to think about is we didn't do any gate duty this year. So that's general revenue that we didn't bring in. We're going to do a better job of doing charge reimbursements. So we're going to get in some Medicaid. So there's a lot of funding resources and sources that we're going to go for that we didn't have last year that's going to help supplement some of this that can get us those contingencies built up a lot quicker without having to dip into any of the 199 or the general.
What are we at on our playground?
It is.
That come out of last year? I mean,
yes.
This current budget?
Yes.
And so
budget.
I mean, y'all elected, right?
Yeah, that was fund. That was fund balance. But we're going to take whatever's left over and that's going to be a part of that. But anyways, it's almost, I mean, it's supposed to be here within the next couple of weeks.
We paid 30,000 of it in deposit and we're still, I think where I paid it out of, I don't think we're still even over in that function.
So we're hoping to have enough in there that we don't even have to dip into the fund. That's what we're really banking on, especially with us, with our RDA for the end of the year. We very easily could not even have to touch fund balance, which is a good thing.
The only thing that I see is
We're still doing budget amendments.
years ago, they made a plan to keep the fund balance at a year's worth of operating.
You want to keep it there, is that what you said?
That's what they done before I got on here.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way they built
It's
this rolling
gone up
money,
since I've been here.
Right.
About 2 million, I think.
but our expenses went up. Our budgets keep
Yeah.
climbing.
Yeah, they always will.
So I mean, that's to give it a tank.
One of the concerns that you need to think about too is that the bill just almost passed in the legislature this year that would require any entity to have no more than 3 months of operating expenses in your fund balance. And so that is, that's, I mean, so, and that's what they're wanting to do is that they're really wanting you to make sure that you're utilizing funds as opposed to just keeping them in the bank. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I mean, those are things that we are going to have to make sure that we're watching legislation wise as to if that's going to happen, what are the scenarios that we have? Because let's face it, I mean, another snow that hits, we're fixing to hit Delta. I mean, let's not get into politics now, but I mean, in the event that Delta, does make an impact in the district, we have no clue what that's fixing to do to us. We don't know what's fixing to happen. So yes, having that fund balance is really there for a good reason. And that's why, if at all possible, what we want to do is that we're almost at that year of what, what we wanted was that full year of full operating, that anything that we do from that point on, we just want to maintain with the current budget so that we just have a zero budget. That yes, we may not be putting anything into fund balance, but we still have that padding in there that you wanted in the first place. Does that make sense? So that's something that we need to think about is that we always want to put things back. We really don't want to get to a point that we're at a zero. I mean, we want to save money as much as we possibly can. We just don't want to hand tie, when it comes time to, fix buildings and do stuff like that. And so,
well, as far as what, and this is just country math and way of looking at it, but as far as our part of setting the budget, if we go off of the numbers, the RADA and everything that we're talked about, it looks like basically with where our enrollment is today, we basically went up 5%, and our suggested budget based on 281 would be up 3.5%. So it gives us a little buffer, at least within the budget that we're trying to work with, which sounds good to me with everything we're talking about.
I definitely want to be more conservative than.
and also within the Business Operating Procedures Manual, one of the things that you guys will have that you have not had in the past is you will have budget amendments throughout the year. It's no longer wait till the end of the year, then we do it. It's going to be as we hit those line items that need to be moved, those budget amendments will be coming to you on not a regular basis. Hopefully we don't have that many, but if there is, it will not be at the end. It will be as we go along. So we'll be able to monitor a lot easier as to income coming in, what's coming out, where our taxes are, those types of things. All of that stuff is in play. And so that's kind of where we are, just to make sure that we're monitoring down.
And that even gives me the opportunity as well to move money, but just between functions, not even touching, I'm not necessarily saying I want to pull it from fund balance, but say I've got $10,000 extra in function 81 that I probably am not going to spend. We can do a budget amendment, move it there, and we're not touching fund balance at all.
And that's also when those budget amendments come in, is building up this pot of money. So when we want to put into a contingency, we had this money left over, we're not touching, we're going to go ahead and move it in, fill up the cup, get the next cup out, and start filling up those cups so that those cups are not touched.
Well, to me, like talking about maintenance, talking about like we go through, start football season, and we're like, everything's got a good vibe, and we look down there and say, you know what, that fence is ridiculous. Well, then your budget's set. You have some room in the fund balance, and you can say, you know what, let's tend to it, and then you can go do some of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tear that fence down, put all turf on it. No, just playing.
All right, anything else, guys? I don't want to keep going any more on that. I mean, I don't want to rush you at the same point, but I mean, Danny's getting a little antsy over there. That's why I was saying that. Is there anything else? Did everybody feel comfortable? Is there anything that just makes you crazy at this point in time?
And look at it on your own time too. And if you have any questions that something feels.
Carter's like, I'm going home and reading all of that tonight.
Email me, don't call me.
I got your number. Hey, what you there?
Need a decoder.
So we all good?
Future agenda items, we will approve the budget on the 30th. That will be at 7:30. We're still okay with 7:30 on that night. We did 6 o'clock this one. The next one will be 7:30. Okay. And then on that meeting, we'll start at 7:30. And then we'll be good to go, and then we'll turn around in the next 2.
That's on the 30th?
The 30th, yes. That'll be a Monday. It'll be 2 weeks from today.
I've already just started to get numbers middle of the day than that.
Yes, we'll have our actual enrollment numbers next week. So we're hoping to know kind of where we are.
Look at it, say,
And
here
so,
we go.
That gives you enough
It'll be
time.
balanced by then.
yes, oh yeah. Because what we'll do is we'll have that number, and that's when we can just plug it in immediately, and we can pull the template, know exactly what our state funding is. And we'll just have, I don't think we're having issues.
So first, I'm
You
trying.
created an event, sent that to my calendar.
All right. That's all I've got.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything?
Amen.
Oh, I think it's just the first day.
Okay. Guys, y'all have a great night. See y'all later.
Thank